Ready to roll? Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Right. Well, first, thank you very much, Dr. Goodall, Jane, for taking this time to do this interview for AHA magazine. It will be the first publication actually coming out in October, so delighted that you're the first major interview that we're going to be doing. So thank you so much. Thank you. About 25 years ago, you started the wonderful charity Roots and Shoots, which has literally taken root around the world. And I was just wondering whether you could just give us an idea of its mission and its purpose at that time.
Yes, it began in Tanzania, and it began with 12 high school students. And the reason I began it is because as I was travelling around the world, I kept meeting young people who seemed not to have much hope, depressed, angry, apathetic. And I began talking to them, and I'm talking about high school, university, young people out in their first job. And basically they were saying, well, you know, the world's a mess, you've compromised our future, and there's nothing we can do about it. And we have. I mean, I see children every day and think how we've harmed the planet since I was that age. And I feel really ashamed of my species.
Yeah.
But I still think we have a window of time to start changing things around. And there are a lot of biologists who say, no, we've reached a point of no return. And maybe it's wishful thinking, but at least I think if our children lose hope, there is no hope.
Yeah.
So basically, Roots and Shoots has as its main message, every one of us makes a difference every single day. And we have a choice as to what kind of difference we're going to make. It's youth-driven. So a group of young people will choose between them, they choose 3 different projects. One will be to help people, one will be to help animals, and one will be to help the environment that we all share. And there's a theme of let's learn to live in peace and harmony with each other, but also with the natural world. So what began with 12 high school students is now in over 130 countries, and there's well over 100,000 groups. And then, on top of that, we've got all what I call the alumni, the ones who've been through Roots and Shoots, and they're now coming into leadership positions.
That must be extraordinarily satisfying, seeing them having sort of graduated, if you like. And of course, it's not just with children as well, isn't it? You've actually got it for adults and people in prisons as well, haven't you?
Yes.
So it's extraordinary.
It's not so many adult groups, but there are a few, and you know, sometimes staff of a big business, so that's very good.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but I mean, did you see it as a natural extension from the Alligator Society that you had as a you know, when you started that's a nature group, when you got sort of all the members had to learn sort of, was it 10 birds, 10 dogs, 10 I can't remember, with trees I think, and then 5 butterflies and 5 moths and so. Did you feel this was in a sense a kind of natural progression that you were able to start this education?
Well, I suppose you could say that. I mean, I never thought of it, but you know, it sort of it does seem to stem from my desire, you know, to get young people involved in nature. Now a bit more of the human community as well. Yeah.
It's such a wonderful opportunity to ask you, what is the state of, what's the situation with the chimpanzee population now in the Gombe, but everywhere really? Where are we at the moment?
We're not in a really very good place. Gombe's actually getting better by the day. I'll come back to that in a minute, but right across the chimpanzees range, you know, they've already gone from 4 countries, you find them in 21 now, many of them in small isolated groups like Gombe. There's maximum 250,000. It used to be closer to 2 million.
Wow, and I remember seeing interviews of you just a few years ago where there was almost 400,000. You were talking about 350 to 400,000, so it's, yeah.
It's going down. The reason that we are very hopeful about Gombe is that, you know, I flew over Gombe and the surrounding country in the early 90s, and I knew there was deforestation, but I was shocked to see that around the little oasis of forest that was Gombe, and it's very small, was completely bare hills. Yeah. And there were more people living there than the land could support. They were too poor to buy food from elsewhere. and they were struggling to survive. And that's when I realised, well, we can't even hope to try and save the chimps while there are people living around like this.
Yeah.
So that began our community-based conservation programme,
Yes.
which is a very holistic effort to help the people improve their own lives.
Is this where Green Mountain Coffee sort of came in as a potential solution to some of the local problems you were having with the bushmeat trade and all of that? Is that one of the...
It's one of the projects that came out of the Tukari programme, yes. Mm. And so people are, we're helping people to have better livelihoods.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things we introduced was microcredit.
Oh, the Grameen Mohammed Yunus.
Yes, Mohammed took me to Bangladesh.
Oh, really?
And, I'll never forget meeting those women that he helped. So microcredit for mostly groups of women.
Yes.
2 men can join, but they usually don't. They tend to drink the profit. So the whole group's got to pay back if they want to get out another loan, you see.
Right.
And then the other thing is family planning.
Yeah.
Which is really important and really well received. Yeah. So as a result of that, they came to trust us, the villagers. So from the 12 villages around Gombe, we extended down south where there are more chimps. There's about 2,000 down there.
Yeah.
And we helped the villagers do their land use planning, and using high resolution satellite imagery. We have a conservation scientist who is absolutely brilliant.
Really? Okay.
And so the villagers, for the first time, they could see these maps and say, one woman said, that's the tree I put my baby under to sleep. It's that detail.
Yeah.
And so they've worked out a buffer strip, land for conservation, forest regeneration between Gombe and the village.
Yeah.
And the chimps now have 3 times more forest than they had before we began. There are no more bare hills now. You fly over and it's all green.
Gosh.
And there's the beginning of a corridor down to these other chimps.
It must make your heart sing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Haven't seen them. Yeah.
Yes, and now JGI is trying to replicate that in the DRC, Uganda, Senegal with JGI Spain, and also around our big sanctuary in Congo.
Wonderful. Am I right?